email is communication. Email is one-to-one to many messaging, direct messaging, right? And if we don't think about it in terms of communication, in terms of a conversation, and in terms of user experience and customer service, almost to an extent, sometimes in some cases, then we're missing out entirely. Brands don't think of it as a conversation, so it's more of a blast. You probably know this term very well. The whole blasting thing. It's not a blast anymore. We're doing this to have a conversation and a discussion with our subscribers to get their feedback, create feedback loops, improve our marketing overall. Email is the perfect channel to do that. There's a huge misconception with email that email equals sales. No, I can tell you that the thing that I see that works really, really well in general, and that's because we're all human, is humor and authenticity. Sorry, I wrote yesterday, thank you for the meeting tomorrow, even though it was yesterday. This email was opened immediately. Immediately.
One Message Away podcast is a podcast on solving marketing related problems in your company, helping you connect with relevant audiences, convert them into paying customers, and becoming a leader in your niche. The podcast drops in seasons. Each season is focused on one specific topic. In the first season, we talk about how to eliminate your competition, how to stand out. Everything is supported by expert interviews, my work, my stories, my experience having worked with more than 30 companies one-on-one and more than 300 companies through workshops, helping them become leaders in their niche. Want to become a niche leader? Subscribe and get unique content to your inbox every 14 days on a Saturday. Welcome everyone to the 5th episode of One Message Away podcast, and I'm excited about this one because we're talking about email marketing, and there is only one person that I always go to when it comes to email marketing, and that is Yuval Ackerman. Hi Yuval, how are you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
Excited. We're talking about one of the most, I think, important things when it comes to marketing, which is email, and I'm excited to have you.
Yeah, happy
So
to be here.
Just to give a bit of background to the audience, so Yuval is one of the most brilliant minds when it comes to email and newsletters. I am subscribed to your ethical newsletter, and I'm just impressed at how it evolves through time, because most of the newsletters, I think they sort of always just try to do the same stuff over and over again, just try to find out what's working and then just repeating that, whereas yours I think really evolves through time, and I'm impressed how you're staying ahead of the curve all of the time, be it algorithm changes, or be it different things that you're trying both in your newsletter and your LinkedIn. So with that in mind, would you like to say a few words about yourself, who you're working with, what do you do in your professional life?
Sure. So I help good doing brands like B Corps and 1% for the Planet and other good doers who do either B2B or e commerce to make more money and increase their impact with their email lists. It's as easy as it sounds, but it's not really easy when you get into the nitty gritty details of it. Yeah, and thank you for all the compliments about my newsletter. I think that as marketers, we can't just sit back and relax and just do whatever worked a year ago or 2 years ago or 10 years ago, because our audience change, our niches or focus changes all the time. People evolve, whether it's the sender, whether it's our audience. Technology evolves. I think we'll have a bit just talking about that, because I think it's really important, and just staying stagnant is not an option, period.
Yeah, I wish that a lot of CMOs are listening to you right now, because I like the amount of sort of copy pasting and just copy pasting and sort of trying same things over and over again, like expecting different results. I see like my business is just like, it's mind numbing, and just where is the ambition, guys? Come on. So in our in the first season, of one message away, like the goal of the season is essentially to show you how to stand out, how to differentiate from your competitors. And so I work with companies that typically produce like 1 to 10 million in recurring revenue. And what I've seen that even at that level, for example, they do not have, they do not compete on simply a nice user experience. And I saw that like in a couple of cases, in a couple of companies that I work with, essentially we did differentiate and we did gain an unfair advantage, let's say, by just having a nicer experience. And so that nice experience, when a person comes into a product, for example, it's not, obviously it's not just about the product itself, right? It's about all of the sort of supporting materials that you have as well. So, it's your LinkedIn profiles, it's your social media, whatever, but it's email as well. And I think email plays a big part in it because, whenever I create an account somewhere, you now have my email. And I don't think we're doing with it what we should be doing with it, which is providing a good experience with um, for our users. And so this is sort of the main topic what I wanted to talk to you about today, because I know you've been doing that pretty well, or extremely well with your newsletter as well, and trying even different things like inviting people to opt out of some of the activation sequences, or some of the sequences that you had. So I know you're an expert in this. I'm looking forward to this, but let's start with a more generic question. So some of the biggest mistakes that you see in email marketing in general, it doesn't have to be in activation sequences, just in general, like what of the five biggest mistakes, three biggest mistakes that companies make when it comes to email marketing?
Yeah. Before I'll dive into this, I just want to thank you for even talking about emails in terms of user experience, because I think what a lot of companies don't understand is that email has to do a lot. It's email is communication. Email is one to many messaging, direct messaging, right? And if we don't think about it in terms of communication, in terms of a conversation, and in terms of user experience and customer service, almost to an extent, sometimes in some cases, then we're missing out entirely. But you did mention something about activation sequences. Let's start with the fact that not all companies even have that. I mean, you sign up for a newsletter. Sometimes you get some kind of an incentive to do so, like a lead magnet or a freebie. We might talk about whether or not those freebies work, but then yeah, there's a very basic sequence following that, if at all. Let's put it this way, if at all. And then the second mistake that I think is very, very evident in all kinds of sequences and all kinds of email marketing is that everything is very brand centric. And tied to this, obviously, is the fact that brands don't think of it as a conversation. So it's more of a blast. You probably know this term very well. The whole blasting thing. It's not a blast anymore. We're doing this to have a conversation and a discussion with our subscribers to get their feedback, create feedback loops, improve our marketing overall. Email is the perfect channel to do that. And I also thought of lack of thoughtful strategy, both in the micro and the macro and micro lenses, as in how each sequence or how each email is behaving and why, and also how different sequences are behaving with one another. So things like, okay, if we have two freebies and then someone is getting back to our website and maybe abandons a cart, do we actually pause the welcome sequence? I would think this is very, very common, and that's common sense, but it doesn't necessarily happen. So where do you place triggers? How do you think of this whole customer journey from beginning to end, and all kinds of friction points? And there are so many mistakes out there that we can talk about forever and ever and ever. Just pick and choose. I'll stop here and you take it
All right.
however.
All right.
Yes.
No, you've given me plenty. So I'm making some notes as we speak, because yes, like 100%, this is essentially what I'm seeing with these companies. And I get that. Like, I get that, if you're in e-commerce, for example, I do understand that you started with transactional emails, because it's the most basic sort of place to start, and it's you need revenue first, right? So let's make sure that the revenue is coming in, and we can think about the whole user experience when the user comes, I don't know, on the website, doesn't convert, leave something in the cart, etc. Like, the most important part is we're going to send you an email 2 hours later saying, hey, you forgot something in the cart, just to make sure that you know we I don't know, convert an additional 3.5 whatever it is percent, right? But after that, like, everyone, like, at this point, I would say almost everyone does that. Almost every e-commerce store does that, right? So, like, my thought process is, how can we do the next step, right? So how can we improve that, right? So if, I don't know, four of our competitors send the same sort of, hey, you forgot something in the cart, how can we personalize that and make it better, so that we can stand out and that the user actually has a better experience with us than it does with a competitor, whatever. We're not going to obviously name names, but that's not exactly happening, right? Like, people are not thinking about improving conversion rates through basically just being better, just improving. So how do you, when you work with clients, when you see that there is, I don't know, an opportunity in the market to do that? Let's say, I don't know, you come into a company, you see that, everyone, you subscribe to five of the competitors newsletters or email lists or whatever, and then you see that, look, everyone's doing the same thing. How do you go to the CMO, CEO, whoever, and say, hey, like, you're doing what everyone else is doing, there is an opportunity to stand out? How do you convince them that this is the right sort of approach?
That's a very easy answer. Let's test it out. Let's do A/B testing, right? If my approach is right and we're testing it on maybe not even 50% of subscribers or whoever abandons their carts, um, if my approach is working, let's let's use that. If it's not, let's continue with what you had so far. I'm not, the data. Okay, that's a loaded thing to say, especially these days in terms of email marketing. The data doesn't lie. The data sometimes it does lie,
Lies.
but you know the audience behavior and response doesn't lie. So if there are more conversions with one approach, we have to stick to that, regardless of what I think personally, and regardless of how we want things to be. If we test something and we see that it works, period.
So you're essentially taking the same approach as I do, like, just trust the data. But you mentioned something funny, and I know where this is going, because you have been very loud about that on all of the social media platforms that you use, your LinkedIn, your Threads, your Blue Sky. Data does lie sometimes. Let's go a bit into that. So we know that with Apple's changes in how it operates email, and Google's algorithm doing the same thing, open rates are not a reliable KPI anymore. Haven't been in a long time. Can you go a bit into that? So can you go a bit into what KPIs do you measure? So
Hmm.
let's say that you're now in a company, you have seen that, for example, and this is an actual case that I had about 2 weeks ago. I started working with a company, and I did the audit, and in the audit, I tested going through it's a SaaS product. So I went through the product and through the onboarding process. And in that process, obviously, I went through the client who hired me, and I also went through the competitors' onboarding processes. And I saw that no one actually has a good activation sequence. No one provides a good experience for the user. It's essentially just transactional emails. So now I go to the CEO and say, I'll do an A/B test. What do you measure? What are the KPIs? What are we looking for? Can you talk a bit about the strategy about that?
Sure. And at some point, I will correct you on the whole like transactional emails. So I'm
Yep.
just banking this in the back of my mind, and we'll get back to this. Um, so, what do we measure? What do we want to achieve? That's my question back. Do we want to achieve
Money,
more
money,
conversions,
sales,
right?
more. Yes.
So more conversions, to me, that means that, so there's a huge misconception with email that email equals sales. No, email is just one step more toward the sale. Have you ever seen an embedded like Stripe or like Shopify like payment processor in an email? I haven't yet. I've been in this field for years. I have never seen a payment processor embedded in an email. So you're always sent to another page to complete your purchase, or to hop on a demo call, or to I don't know, hop on a call, or complete your sale or purchase. And basically, email is just, you need to get the micro conversion, right? You need to open the email, you need to read the email, and then you need to click and continue the customer journey. And so, what do you measure if you can? The cross pollination between email clicks and page behavior. So, for example, if you know that you're sending an email to 1,000 people, let's just make it easy. 1,000 people. Out of those 1,000 people, 250 are clicking to go on the page. Assuming that these are right clicks, unique clicks, and not bots, which happens a lot these days. First of all, that's an amazing CTR. 25% is an amazing click through rate for any kind of sequence, for any kind of an email. And so, if 250 people actually go onto the page to continue the customer experience with you and their user journey, how many of those 250 people actually convert into booking a call or completing their purchase? If the email actually made its thing and basically fulfilled its purpose in life, which was to get the click, then the emails are working. Then there's something in the page, on the page itself, that is preventing them from completing the purchase. So we need to look at it from all angles, right? Because email is not a standalone. It doesn't live in a silo. It's a part of an ecosystem. So we need to look at the different components. So what do you check? You check open rates to an extent to see that the deliverability, that your emails are actually getting to your recipients' inboxes. Then you possibly check clicks, and then you make sure that the clicks are actually unique and the user behavior on the page is a certain way, and can you optimize in each and every step of this journey, basically.
Got it. Do you, because, and I'm mostly talking here about an experience from ads, not from emails, because I have never sort of, um, I've never worked on a project in depth, like where we would have to go deeply into email, or I never led that kind of a project, but I did lead projects where we had to figure out click-through rates and then conversions on a website. So I use that technique actually a lot. So essentially, you get people from an ad to a landing page, and on the landing page, you convert them into whatever, right? So if you're testing something new, you're testing new positioning, a new positioning strategy, a new kind of product or angle to the product, or the messaging of the product, or something like that. We typically do it like that, like so: add, landing page, conversion. And conversion could be join the waiting list or something. It doesn't have to be an actual transaction, like money transaction. But do you ever, so you mentioned you have a 25% click-through rate on an email, and you say, all right, so email works well. Do you ever balance it? Did you ever find in any of the projects, for example, that an email had an amazing click-through rate, but actually the email was the problem because you hyped up something too much, and that's why the conversion didn't happen on the product or on the landing page, because the product didn't live up to the expectation that the email created, because that happens quite a bit. For example, when you're trying to reposition a product, that happens quite a bit, because we tend to go, all right, so we are the best at X, and then you do, oh, we could actually say X is better, more powerful, 3.0, whatever, and then you hype it up a bit like AI right now, right? So AI is positioned right now as an magic pill that will help you generate 90 days of content with a single click. And then you go into ChatGPT or whatever, you put in, hey, give me 90 days of content, right? And it gives you, hello world, I am very excited to share, right? So the product doesn't essentially deliver on the promise. So do you ever sort of go in and balance that? Like, okay, we need to tone down an email and the expectation in the email, even if it means lower click-through rates, because we're getting them better conversions on landing page.
Yeah, that's a good question. I think that my role as a chief email officer is to provide options, right? I can and I do sometimes, if I do see a little bit of hyping that is unnecessary, I would actually go to the marketing team and say, look, let's test this version against a more realistic one, back to A/B testing, and see which one works best. Is our goal to get more clicks to the page and then see what happens on the page, or are we at the stage of, do we actually want to get less clicks, but at each click would actually mean a conversion or more clicks? How would I phrase this? You know what I mean. We'll have a lower click rate, but the conversion rate would be better. So which one do we choose? Each company and each brand would choose a different thing depending on where they're at in terms of their maturity level, in terms of their existing ecosystem. My role is, again, to give options and pull in the brakes when needed, but say, of course, if you want to test it out, I'm all for it.
Got it. Okay, interesting. So you're not kicking butt about this is what we have to do. You're essentially presenting and letting them choose.
It's not letting them choose, really. It's seeing the options that we have, and I trust the internal marketing team to know what has been working before I started
Mm.
working with them, to an extent, right? I don't expect them to know everything. That's why they hire me, to help them, but I do expect them to test out different approaches. That's what we're doing this for. And also realize that our opinions don't really matter. What really determines our success is the key to everything, which is our audience. So if our audience says X and we say no, but we want to make sure that we're promoting Y, then there's a misalignment and this will not
Yeah,
work.
got it. Yeah, I hear you on that, because at the end of the day, we are outside consultants, right? So the marketing team actually has the most knowledge on the audience and on like past data, past like the strength of the gut feel, which helps in those cases, like in which way to go. But you mentioned you'll correct me on the transactional emails. What did
Yeah.
you mean by that?
I think, and do correct me if I'm getting this wrong, that you refer to transactional emails as in emails that are trying to get the sale.
Yeah.
Yeah. In email, transactional emails are not that, just a term.
Okay.
Transactional
Aha.
emails are the emails in which you get receipts
Aha. Got it. Okay.
for a purchase. So these are hopefully on a different subdomain, and they behave very differently, and they perform wonderfully because people expect them and they get them at the very high engagement point. So treating transactional emails with a good strategy and using the right tactics with transactional emails is actually really, really important, but it's a different thing entirely. Just
Got
terminology,
it.
you know?
Got it. So, how do you call the reminders? Hey, you forgot something in the cart. You should go buy it. Here is the button to do it.
That would be a yeah, just a re-engagement sequence, not re-engagement sequence. Yeah, abandoned card sequence.
Got it.
That's it. Yeah.
All right. All right. I got that wrong. Um, Sounds good. So we started talking, and I started mentioning AI a bit. And obviously, you know, somebody listening up to this point will say, "Oh yeah, all right. So let's do something with our email marketing." It is, it is an owned channel that's useful. We now have some thoughts on how to use it and how to approach it. We have some strategy. Let's go into ChatGPT and write a sequence of 7 emails and start sending that out to users who come into our products or whatever, right? Now the problem with that is that the way I see it, and I'm interested in your opinion here, is personalization, right? So you started mentioning in I think your first answer, you started mentioning a bit about different triggers and different sequences and how one sequence affects another sequence. What actually happens in the user's inbox? Like, what do they get because they've downloaded free of our lead magnets? So how do you balance that? How do you balance, on one hand, having multiple lead magnets? How do you balance that with sort of personalization? Um, so let's say that you have a growing list, right? You have, I don't know, I believe a couple last week or a couple of weeks ago, if you remember, I came across a post of a person who didn't want to, like, he had, I believe, 150,000 subscribers and didn't want to essentially go into that. He didn't want to create a whole complex system of, okay, a person A came in here, downloaded this lead magnet, so we're going to be sending them this sequence, etc., etc. He didn't want that you know complexity in his life. He didn't want to segment um, the user base. And I invited you to comment, and you said it's a missed opportunity. So can you go a bit into that? Like, what would you do in that case? You have a growing list of people, you have multiple entry points. How do you approach that? How do you sort of start growing or start approaching even the strategy part of email marketing?
Sure. Let me just comment on this particular example. In his
Mhm.
case, and reading a few of the comments, um, they didn't want to segment the list. They didn't want to send different emails to different segments. They didn't want to touch the email list. And in some comment, I think they also said, someone said back to them, maybe delete the list, and they said thinking about it. So in this very particular case, if you have a list of 150,000 people and you don't want to use it, and you know that social media is rented land, and obviously I'm completely biased here about email, then don't go into it at all. Don't touch your email list. Maybe even delete it, because you're just paying for active users on an ESP, on an email service provider that you're not using. So what's really the point, right? I do think it's a missed opportunity, because if you have 150,000 people who are ready and hoping to hear from you, and you're doing absolutely nothing with it, and you want to grow a brand, be it a personal brand, an e-commerce brand, a SaaS brand, B2B, whatever, and you're not using a database of 150,000 people who hopefully opted in with their full consent, then I think you're missing out on a huge, huge, like multiple Like, I think there's so much money to be made and so much impact to be made with such a list. But let's put this aside. The question was, remind me, please.
The question was like, how do you even approach that? Let's say that you get invited to work with a company. The company has 150,000 subscribers or whatever. Pick a number. They're all in one list. It's called leads. How do
Mhm.
you begin personalizing that? How deep do you go? How granular do you go with personalization so that you don't end up in a multi-complex system that you can't manage essentially?
Yeah. I think the process here would be gradual, right? We will start with
Mhm.
the quick wins. So we'll start looking at user behavior off on and off email, as in we'll start with people who purchased once or multiple times, so clients or customers, and their tier of engagement with our brand. That would be the easiest segment. Um, it really depends. You knew that I was going to say this at some point. It really depends on the resources that the company has, because if we have a huge list but not enough people to actually collect the data and deploy the strategy, then um, the strategy could be incredible and complex, but it will just, people will just burn out and nothing will be done. It
So
really, really depends.
you're actually testing sort of against the market. So for example, let's start with quick wins. These are people who recently converted, so they're more active, etc. There, I don't know, you take out a segment of users who has been opening or clicking in the emails more often in the past, I don't know, whatever, 6 months, 12 months, whatever, and then you test that against the team. What can actually the team provide or do or execute?
Yes and no, because we did mention that opens and clicks can be unreliable. So I wouldn't necessarily segment it according to that. I will absolutely segment according to purchases and more reliable engagement off email. And then, we can go as granular as we wish, but it all, again, it depends on the resources that we have, both in terms of the email service provider that we're using and also the people who are responsible to make the strategy come to life, right? So it really, really depends. The easiest segment would be purchases, when average order value, lifetime value, those kinds of things. And from there, we can go more granular, again, depending on the strategy and what we want to achieve.
Got it. Um, so if you were in a company, um, so you mentioned average order value. So you would say like if a person has an average order value above whatever, and then that's one segment of users. Or how
It
would
could
you?
be.
It could be okay. And if you have different products, you can segment on different sort of products. It all depends
Could
basically
be.
on. Okay, so it's essentially down to what were we trying to achieve, and then personalize the
Always.
strategy. Got it.
Always. Because, for example, let's take an example that I've seen in my inbox recently. The company Patagonia, the
Mhm,
clothing brand,
mhm.
which happens to be a B Corp. And their emails are not segmented according to men, women, kids. And on one hand, I think that's a missed opportunity, because if you're sending an email a week, because that's their strategy at the moment, and you're sending an email that is about everything and not specifically tailored to what people have been interested in before, or what people have purchased before, then that's a missed opportunity. On the other hand, maybe their strategy is all about, actually, let's give you choices, let's empower you as the subscriber to choose what it is that you want to see, even if you have previously shown interest in just men's clothes. So again, it's very nuanced. There are very There are so many variables and so many things um, that we can test, that we can segment according to. It really depends on, again, what you're trying to achieve, what you're trying to test, and what you're trying to learn about your subscribers in the next 3 to 6 months as well.
Got it. Um, so, in your opinion, should they, like, because in my experience, I know that I got that kind of an email from someone at some point. The experience was basically I got an email which was, here is some women clothing for you. And I'm like, why? Like, and so basically that led to an unsubscribe immediately, because if you don't, like, if you can't personalize like your emails on such a basic level that my gender, then like what's like I'm not gonna follow your, like, I'm not interested in receiving your emails. And that's just me.
But hear
I'm
me
just one
out.
person.
Hear me
Yeah,
out. What
go ahead.
if you previously? Let's give them the benefit of the doubt, right? Like,
Yeah.
let's give them a huge benefit of the doubt here and say that they have previously seen your behavior on their website, and you wanted to buy clothes for someone else, so not yourself. So it makes sense to me to an extent why they would personalize the email based on the data that they have. Is that the right data for them to have? Maybe not, but maybe it's your fault. That's what I'm saying.
It's not my fault. I 100% never bought something for a piece of clothing for a woman because I like my life. I like staying
Oh
alive.
my god.
So no, I'm kidding, but I don't know. Like, I don't know how to choose that. I'm like, I have no idea how to buy a piece of clothing, for example. So for a woman, obviously. So I definitely didn't do that. I just believe that they just never asked me for, or yeah, essentially they just never asked me for, like, about my
so
gender. So
so what you're tapping here into is actually a much larger issue, I think, which is not empowering our subscribers to let us know what they're interested in.
exactly, and I would be happy to tell them.
Yeah, exactly, right. And gender, just so we're clear, is just one type of segment that we can have. It's not right for every type of brand, and it's definitely not a must for every brand. For example, I would not ask for a gender for a brand that sells, I don't know. Let's think of something. I don't know, cleaning products for the home, right?
Yeah.
And plus, I think it would be a huge missed opportunity if we just assumed in this day and age that only women are interested in such a thing. So, if the whole marketing and messaging would be around and for and about women, that's a missed opportunity. So, gender, just to make it very, very clear, not necessarily what you need to segment according to. Um, yeah, and I share the struggle in terms of buying clothes online for women. Just so we're clear.
Got it. I think it's everyone's kind of problem. Let's switch a bit. Just on sort of one final, like, I have one or a couple of final questions. Um, Referring back to what I said in the beginning, I really sort of learned a lot by just watching you, um, like, put together your newsletter and your social media strategy at the same time. And I know that at some points I saw that, for example, you were testing out different stuff, like um, posting something in the, or sending something in the newsletter, and then you would have to answer a poll on LinkedIn, but the answer would be in your newsletter. So you're basically trying to create hype about the newsletter and all that sort of stuff. And I thought, like, this is like that kind of test is, I think, what's missing, for example, in email a lot, simply because it leads to possibly unexpected results, right? It leads to possibly something working when you essentially was just trying to figure something out, and you figure out, oh, this actually works really well, or the other way around, like something that felt like it's a pretty safe bet actually didn't work at all. So can you share a bit, what kind of strategies work best when either for your newsletter um, or a company, companies that you work with, what kind of strategies do you use? What kind of work best? Maybe some stories where, I don't know, something unconventional worked where you didn't expect it to work, or something like that. Can you share a bit, about tactics and how do you approach these tests?
Yeah. So I can tell you that the thing that I see that works really, really well in general, and that's because we're all human, is humor and authenticity. And I'm not talking about oops emails that are fake ones. I'm talking about emails where, we're all human, and even though it went through several hands, we still uh, wrote the wrong alt text, and it showed something completely different, and the image didn't load up, and it just says something really, really silly. Or I can tell you that this is a very personal kind of example. I didn't test it. I didn't do it in order to test it, but I had a frontal meeting with someone, and a day later I sent them an email thanking them for the conversation and for the meeting. And in the subject line, I accidentally, honestly, wrote, "Thank you for the meeting yesterday." No, sorry, I wrote yesterday. Thank you for the meeting tomorrow, even though it was yesterday. This email was opened immediately, immediately. But this is only because I was distracted for like a split second, and I sent it either way. I'm only human, after all. Humor helps a shit ton. Mistakes that are genuine can go viral. Bringing in the fun, can help any kind of brand on email and off email uh, really, really well. Um, what else? Anything that involves collecting qualitative data from our subscribers, so then we can create those feedback loops and feed back into our strategy what we learned from our subscribers. So you mentioned this tactic that I used with the secret polls. I
Mhm.
just wanted to create a better synergy between my social media and my email. That was way before all kinds of ESPs provided polls, in email polls. You must have seen them ever since.
Yeah,
So yeah, again, creating feedback loops. So bringing people into my email list and out of my email list and back into my email list, and attracting more people because they were curious. So that was one way to create a feedback loop. But as I said,
it,
anything that would make people interact with us more and tell us more about what they prefer and how we can cater to them better.
got it. And so for that, do you typically rely on their answers to the emails, or do you often like take them to a landing page where you have, I don't know, what kind of a survey or something? So how do you get that feedback from the users? So again,
Again,
we
it
have,
depends.
got it. Like every marketer's answer for everything ever. It depends.
Of course, of course.
Got it. All right. So one final question: what's next for email marketing? So we are seeing like more and more with the Google's algorithm changes, Apple's algorithm changes, we sort of went into we cannot track or almost cannot track open rates anymore. We don't know how reliable it is. Now AI came into play. What's next for email? What's sort of the next sort of, I don't know, big thing that you're looking for, or what's sort of one trend that you are anticipating in the next 6, 12, 18, 24 months?
Ooh. I don't know about 24 months. I do know that in the next couple of months, as to, when we're recording this, the big thing that email marketers are looking at are deliverability. So making sure that emails actually land in the inbox and not in the spam folder, and how AI is changing the game in terms of the user experience. So I don't know if our listeners know this, but a few months ago, Apple also, but I guess it's just a matter of time before others will do that too. Apple introduced its intelligence feature in its iOS, and basically now both previews, so preview lines are being replaced by AI summaries, and also notifications are playing a different role. So every tech giant is trying to improve its user experience, mostly through AI, but not only through AI. And I think the important thing for us email marketers to remember is that it is all about our users, and that AI is just a fact. It's not going anywhere. So yes, the things are getting harder for us to get the message across, quite literally. But how do we improve our efforts to make sure that our messages actually reach the inboxes, and then they are also being read or perceived correctly? And another thing that I'm really keeping an eye on is the whole accessibility topic. Um, there are rules that are coming out or being updated at the moment about how to make our emails more accessible. And aside from the rules, the rigid rules of how things need to be, and the contrast between the colors, and how much live text do you need to have versus how much images, and how your email is being read by I can't remember how it's called, but for people with vision
Mhm.
impair, like people who are visually impaired. So email readers, I think, I can't remember, but anyhow, I think accessibility is beyond the rigid rules. It's something that we all need to do to create a better user experience, because if the contrast is not high enough in terms of colors, then people in dark mode who use dark mode might not see our emails as they're supposed to be, for
Definitely.
example.
Definitely dark mode. Like, pay attention to dark mode. I am
Yeah.
not reading your email if I can't read it in dark mode. Like, my
Yeah.
eye hurts when they see white. All right. Thank you so much, Yuval, for being with me. Was there anything that I missed? Anything that you wanted to point out? Anything else that um, is in your notes and you'd like to share it with the audience? Any topic you'd like to open up?
I think we covered most, if not all, of the things that we wanted to talk about. Good job.
Wow, nice. See, that's because I'm a good host and you're a good guest. So
Ah,
let's do
look at
that
us.
again. All right. So obviously, final question: where do people find you if they wanna, if they see this episode, they wanna get in touch with you. They wanna hear about your thoughts on their email marketing. Where can they find you? What's your best, you know, social media slash contact point?
Ooh, my best contact point is my email list. Really, just join, because you'll get so many ideas on how to get more money out of your email list, and how you can put that money back into impact. So that's on. You can join at ethicalemails.co/subscribe, and if you're already on my website, just have a quick look at how I can help you. In terms of social media, if you insist, we can connect on LinkedIn with my full name, Yuval Ackerman. I believe we'll also have some show notes for you to help you out with this. I'm also on Blue Sky and Threads under the handle name, or however it's called, Ethical Emails. If you really, really insist, do send me a DM on Instagram, but I'm rarely there. And other than that, try to send me a letter every once in a while. That would be nice.
A physical letter.
Yeah.
So you wanna, like, in the show notes we can add your address as well, or?
But that's, we haven't mentioned that, but I've been nomading for the past 2 years. So sending me a physical letter would be impossible, or impossible, really.
You'd
Um,
you'd need you'd need a PO box somewhere just to, like, and then check it every 6 months or so.
or maybe just, start training some pigeons.
There you go. Like,
Yeah.
at least then the pigeons would be useful. So um otherwise they're just pooping on my car. So with that thought, let's end this episode. And Yuval, thank you so much for being with me and for bearing with me. Thank you so much for your thoughts. I really appreciate it. And yeah, I'll see you in the next episode.